Welcome to the June the 13th, 1988 taping of It Happened in Grand Prairie, as we bring you back memories of the past in Grand Prairie, Texas, and some of the good things that are going on with those that have been a part of our past today. This is our history tape number 70, and we are so delighted to bring you recollections of the Powers family, of the Tom Powers family, and with a spin-off into the Schauses and the Duvals and many other very famous first-time families in Grand Prairie, Texas. And we're so pleased to welcome you, Polly Powers McAllister, to our show today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. And of course, we're very excited to have Juanita Duval Anderson back on the show again. And Juanita, you're so neat to bring Polly to us today.
Well, thank you. It was my pleasure.
Wonderful. All right, now, we know that you ladies are kinfolks, and that's what we're looking for in the history of our Grand Prairie, people that have been important to our past, and etc. And first of all, we're going to clue in on Polly. Polly, we want to give you sort of the center stage. We've interviewed Mrs. Anderson a little bit in the past, but we know that you're related, and we want to bring that relationship in a few minutes. But we'd like for you to look out into your camera and tell us about the Powers family that was so important to Grand Prairie. When your father came here, your mother's name, her maiden name, and a little bit about the beginning of the Powers beginning in Kentucky. Would you do that?
Yes, I'd be very happy to. Of course, I'm the youngest of all the other children of 9. I was the 9th one, in which 7 grew to be adults.
Okay.
I arrived in Grand Prairie January the 7th, about real cold day, about 2:30 in the morning, for Dr. W.E. Gillespie. And I liked my parents, so I decided to stay.
That's excellent.
And I with them, and I was the youngest, which I wasn't very welcomed by my older sister, who was a senior, 3rd year in college. She thought she wasn't ever going to get to go back to college again. But it happened, she did. But after she saw me, and I wiggled, yawned while she put me up to her cheek, and she said, "Oh, you are sweet." And she found out I was a little girl. She thought I was a little boy. So anyway, it turned out that I was very special.
Very special in the
Very
Tom
special,
Powers family.
Tom Powers family.
Okay.
I had and never fussed with my sisters and brothers. I was always looked up to them, and they never did any wrong in my eyes, and I don't think I did in theirs. They never complained about having a little sister running around. They was always helping me to do things.
All right. Now, give us your father's full name.
My father was Thomas Daniel Powers from Frankfort, Kentucky. He came down after my mother's family came and settled in Pleasant Mound.
All right. Now, what was your mother's family's name, please?
Schaus.
The Schauses came down to Pleasant Mound.
And where my grandfather was a contractor building. Well, he did a lot of things, but that's what he liked to do. He has built several homes here in Grand Prairie.
All right, now give us your mother's full Schaus name.
Isola, I-S-O-L-A, Isola Powers. She did not have a middle name. And just the Schaus.
And your father came from Kentucky when the Schaus family moved.
Well, he
down
followed.
He followed
Schaus
them.
family.
All right.
So
you know about what year that was?
No, not really.
All right.
I have some idea, but right now it's blown the coop.
All right. And so he came to the Grand Prairie area, and where did he settle in Grand Prairie?
Well, my father settled, and mother, they came here. They were married in Pleasant Mound.
All right.
And my sister Goldie Lee was born there. They moved to Grand Prairie, I think, when she was about 6 years old.
And she was the first child.
Yes, she was the first.
All right.
And they lived just 3 miles south where the, what's the
Pleasant, huh?
They lived down south of Grand
Like
Prairie.
Florence Hill area?
No, right,
Not-
no, right where the Grand Prairie Park is.
Oh,
That was our
Cottonwood.
park. Cottonwood Park was our park.
The Cottonwood Park.
And so that's my father. Well, I think there's 680 acres there that he put under cultivation himself.
All right, and he was a farmer to
He
begin
was a
with.
farmer, always a farmer.
All right.
And we had a lot of help.
All right, now would you like to name all of your brothers and sisters?
Yes.
So that we'll have a historic record of
Okay,
them.
Goldie Lee was the first. She passed away when she was 74. Then next was Bessie. Well, there was a child in between
But Bessie.
that he died. He was 9 months old with pneumonia, which was so common in those days, I believe. And then Bessie was 4 years younger.
All right,
Bessie Pearl. She doesn't
All
like
right.
the pearl, but she doesn't know it's.
all right.
And then was Jim, James Anderson. And there was John Alonzo.
All right.
And there was Ward Wakefield. And there was Thomas Daniel Jr. And there was Hezekiah Walkane.
Now that's a good one. All right.
And little Walkane was scalded to death. He pulled a pan of hot water over on him where the cook had left the handle out, and he I don't know how on earth the child got it, but he got up on something and pulled it off on him. And so that we were always watched, so that's one of the tragedies
In the family.
in the family that I don't think that was ever gotten over.
All right, and who was next after
And then
Hezekiah?
Lou Edna Polly came next.
All right. Now you were it and almost the caboose to the world.
Caboose.
All
So
right.
the Lou Edna, there was kind of a converse about
Yes.
my name.
Uh-huh.
And so my father never called me Lou Edna, he called me Polly.
Okay.
But we won't go into why my name is because my aunt was so upset because they were having another child
There you are.
that
And if you live down near the Cottonwood Park area,
we lived on the hill.
on the
And
hill,
there was the first house there, and then later they built one for the Nolans.
all right, they were your next door neighbors.
Mhm.
All right.
And one was to the west, and one was to north, one was to south. And then across the street was different ones lived there. I mean, across the creek.
All right. Cross Cottonwood Creek.
Creek.
Now, their
Uh-huh.
house would be where Philip Courts is now, that street, right there.
The street where Phillips Court is located, on that hillside.
On that hill, and then their barns was down in the flat part, on where the park is now, their barns. Their
Was
cow
right there.
barns and everything
Well,
was down below there, on the park.
All right.
Well, our big barn was
Well, there's barns all over the place, but the barns down.
and my father built, then the first years of life, now it's the same distance now as it was then, but he thought it was too far for his children to go to school. So they boarded it here in Grand Prairie.
In other words, from Cottonwood Park was too far
Right
to
out
come
here
to
at the
school.
railroad, to the interurban track, right, Grandma Ella, what do you call her? Aunt Ella was her teacher.
All
And
right.
they stayed there. But then the other four, the later four, then they were older, so they could watch after us, taking us back and forth to school to see if we got there safely.
Well, that's unusual. That's to have them board when they were 2 miles from Grand
Exactly
Prairie,
3
Texas.
miles.
Exactly 3 miles from Grand Prairie, Texas. And so the older ones were boarded here in town,
In town.
to go to school.
Uh-huh.
Where did you get to go to school?
When I was 7, I attended the Grand Prairie School,
All right.
same building. I started school, I finished, and they had all the grades in that school.
In the
there.
old red building.
In the old red two-story brick building.
All right.
My first teacher was Mrs. Yeager. My second teacher, grade, was Mrs. Liggett.
How wonderful.
And she's still living, but I don't think she's
She isn't really well.
just well at all.
Yes.
So,
Do you remember the principal's name?
yes, at my time there was Mr. Husband was the one.
Was the principal. Okay.
And it was kind of odd another way, or what to say. My husband went to the Dallas School.
All
And
right.
at one time he was his principal
His principal
until he
also.
came out here. But my husband left and his family went to Arizona when he was, New Mexico, when he was 14.
All right. Now, we want to find out about when you were in the upper grades of Grand Prairie schools. Do you have a graduating class
Yeah,
year?
Mrs. Hyatt was one of my teachers. Miss Tommy Turk was one of my teachers. Well, she taught 1 year, and happened to be in her class.
Okay. Were you involved in the sports or
I was in
cheerleading?
everything. I was involved in everything.
Oh, well, wonderful.
Church, I was everything. I was
Tell us your church.
the First Methodist Church.
Okay.
And well, let's see, there's so much to tell.
All right. What year did you graduate from Grand Prairie High School to class?
1927. Francis
1927.
Pete, L.T. Nolan, Thelma Waddell. See, no, oh, I could just go on and on. Right now, Bill Fowler.
All right. And
Most of those, I think Francis Williams is living, but
Yes.
and Irene Graham, Irene Paxton.
Paxton
In
Graham.
fact, Irene Paxton is the one that introduced me to my husband.
oh, she did. Tell us about Irene introducing
I
you
was
to
in
your husband.
Abilene in 26
All right.
for the summer and going to summer school, and I came back by train, and she met me at the station right out there at the Grand Prairie Station. And Mother had gone to Denton, Texas to be with my sister who had just had a little boy. So she wasn't at home. So they hadn't gotten the word exactly what time I would arrive, but there wasn't anyone to meet me except my friends, in which I think they had a part of that so they could meet me. So she introduced me to my husband, and we were right in front of the Hudson Bay store.
All right.
And
Would you give us his full name, your husband's name?
Edward Tanner McAllister.
All
He's
right.
part of the Tanner
Clan.
from Dallas, and McAllisters also.
Okay.
And the Marshes, he has a very a name from way back.
And so Irene was the matchmaker.
Matchmaker of the years.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And my marriage was one that wasn't supposed to work.
All right. Tell us about this.
Well, they thought I was a child that was so protected and never did really want for anything, so to speak. I'm not bragging. This is just the way it was. And they always said I couldn't boil water without burning it, so they thought my getting married, that was something else. But I showed them. We were married, we were married 56 years.
I see. Did you have any children?
Yes, we had 2 children.
Would you name
3
them?
children. One was 2 of the boys were born here. One was lived 3 days. He was born in August of 28.
And his name?
His name was Cecil.
All right.
And then Dader of Thomas Edward then was born November of 29.
All right.
Then I went on out to Arizona to be with my husband, who my husband worked for the Ford plant here in Dallas, and he had been interviewed to go to take over the machine production center in Mexico. And he was kind of on the field. He didn't know where he wanted to. He's a wonderful worker, but he did too much work himself to boss people. He spoke and wrote Spanish fluently, and so that was the drawing card. And they really did want him to go, but his parents needed him in Arizona because they had just lost 2 children with poliomyelitis, and they were quite broken up, and they wanted us to come back and help run their business. So when his mother and father came to Dallas to visit with us, and he saw his mother and father and how much they had aged, and since he had seen them the last 2 years, that he just couldn't resist. So we accepted 1/3 of the business and went out there.
And what type business was this?
It's a farm and
It is a farm
dairy.
and dairy. Wonderful.
And I lived with his parents 14 years.
And did you have any
And
more
we
children?
yes, I had a daughter.
Give us that.
Meta Jo McAllister Smith.
All right.
And out of these, my 2 children that's living, Thomas Edward had, they gave us 3 children.
All right. Name those grandchildren.
Oh, yes, I
And where
will.
they live.
Well, Claudia Jane Russell lives in Sacramento, California, and she has 4 children. And then I have then Thomas Edward Jr. It lives in Phoenix, but just now transferring to Minnesota,
Right.
in which I talked with him Sunday. And then the other daughter, Cynthia Lou Crow, and they live in Glendale, and she's in the construction business.
And these are all children of your son.
my son.
All right. Now, how about your daughter?
My daughter has a girl and 2 sons.
All right.
And,
name your daughter.
Meta Jo Smith,
All
and
right.
her husband is George William Smith,
Okay.
and he's a twin. They live right next to twin
And where do they live?
in Phoenix.
They live in Phoenix.
My son, he's a superintendent of schools in
All right.
Glendale. And then
Name their children.
her Jody, and she's married to a Zanecki, Dave Zanecki, and they have 1 child.
Can you name the child?
And oh yes, Shaylin.
All right.
She's one of my life support. And then well, Billy's next, and he's married to Jennifer. And they have 2 children, little Billy and little Polly Ann.
How wonderful, a namesake.
Well, I named her.
Oh, that is wonderful.
And then David, her youngest son, has 2 children,
All right.
and he's Jacqueline Tanner, and Alicia is the little girl's name.
That is wonderful. All right.
And then I have also adopted my niece's daughter,
All right.
Billy Joe's sister,
All right. Billy Joe Armstrong's sister.
uh-huh.
And what is her name?
Dorothy Lou,
All right, Dorothy
and
Lou.
she's married to a Pappas.
Okay. That's wonderful. And everyone in Grand Prairie, Texas knows Billy Joe Armstrong because he has a television show for Graf Chevrolet that he does lots of things for them. And we just wished he could have been on the show with us today.
Well, wouldn't that have been grand? I would love
Yes,
to have
we saw him at lunch, but he couldn't cut the
make
mustard
it,
this
uh-huh.
afternoon.
Now,
All right.
Dorothy Lou has two boys,
Name those.
Johnny, and he just married last year, and then Sammy, the younger one.
All right. Now you're related to Pop Bostic, Tom Bill Bostic, Billy Joe Armstrong, and even a former mayor of Grand Prairie,
Right.
Charles Powers. Tell us about young Charles Powers.
Oh, Charles, well,
How he's related to you.
he is my youngest brother's son,
So he is your nephew.
so he's my nephew.
All right. And Mr. Powers graduated from the class in the late 39s.
39.
I believe in class of 37 or 39, and was, I believe, president of the class, and then finally became the very youngest mayor in Grand Prairie,
of
Texas.
Grand Prairie.
It's wonderful. And we wish you'd have brought him to the show today. That would have
Well,
been exciting.
It was my procrastination. I should have contacted him, but I've been going so much, and I know he's going to be upset with me, but I'll get in touch with him.
All right. When you and your husband married, and then you moved to Phoenix and have been around the mulberry bush, do you ever get back to Kentucky to see Mr. Tom Powers
I
folks?
had that privilege this year, and it's something I've been wanting to do for as long as I can remember. When we moved to Arizona, when we came back, it was always so much to do here and see that we never could continue our trip on any further. So as long as I had sisters and brothers, my father and mother lived, or sisters and brothers, I always came back. And I always tell them, and every trip I say, you know, it's just the same distance from Grand Prairie it is to Glendale as it is here. But they always assured me I could see so many more people, which is true. But they've all been out to see me except Tom.
All right. Now, I'd like to ask you this about the year your father passed away, or your mother. Do you have any of those dates in hand? And are they buried here in Grand
Yes,
Prairie?
they are in the Grand Prairie Cemetery. My father passed away on July the 11th of 19 1932.
1932. And he's buried at Old Southland
Old
Cemetery?
Southland Cemetery.
All right.
And then my mother passed away August the 18th of 1941.
All right, now tell me this. When your dad was a mover and shaker in town, was he ever on any boards or commissions?
No, my father was not, but he believed in his family. He provided for us to do everything, and he wanted us to be involved. And he sat back and ran the ranch and to see that we had. My mother was a PTA
Oh, she was in the PTA and church?
And the church and the lodge. But then I think the last years of my father's life, he got where he would like to go more. But his health was not that good, so.
All right, let's leave you rest just a minute.
Okay.
And let's get on over to Juanita. Juanita, since you all are related as second cousins through the Schaus family, since her mother was a Schaus, and your mother was a Schaus, or was your father? Your daddy was a Schaus. All right, why don't we name the Schaus family and get your mother and father and get us down to the close proximity, since you all are second cousins, and get that on our record. Would you do that?
Get the Schauses.
Get your mother and father's name down now.
My mother's name was Betty Gray.
Betty Gray, and she married a Schaus.
She married a Duval.
She married a Duval.
And Daddy's name was
the Schaus.
Schaus.
All right.
His mother was a Schaus.
All right, now give me your
sister.
Your father's full name.
James Robinson. No. It's James. What is it, Polly?
I don't know.
James Holland Duval.
James Holland Duval. All right.
And
that's after our grandfather.
that's after our grandfather.
All right. And did y'all see each other much when y'all were kids? Tell us about that.
Well, we were always a close family.
All right. Now, where was your home place?
Now, they lived south of Grand Prairie, and we lived north of Grand Prairie.
Y'all lived so far apart, it'd take an all-day singing and dinner on the ground to get you together,
really would, but
it?
we'd always come out to Aunt Sisters. We called her Aunt Sister.
All right.
She was our Aunt Sister and Uncle Tom. And we would come out there and have, our Sunday dinners and all just to get together. All of them would come out there, out here to the...
And did you all go to school together in your classes?
No.
She went to Oklahoma.
No, I went out here, but I was younger.
She was younger. She's not going to claim she's our age, Polly.
No, but I see Polly was out of school.
I'm much older than she.
There you are.
She's just a little bit older than me. Just that way.
All right. Polly, as you've come back to Grand Prairie, Texas, visiting occasionally, how do you find the change in Grand Prairie, my dear?
Well, I came gradually because I came back every year, and sometimes when there was illness or something, I would come. It has at least 3 times one time. I did not get to come back in 32 at all, which I've been very grieved about, but circumstances, I was expecting a child, so I wasn't able to travel. But I have been able to come back every time for all the rest of the sadness and happiness and the weddings and whatnot. I tell them I'm the wedding person. I'm always at their weddings. So it's just a big thrill to come back. And now that all the sisters and brothers are passed away, we have I call it a cousins club. You know, your cousins become so really closer to you when you grow up than they are really when you're young.
All right, would you name all of your cousins that live in the close proximity of Grand Prairie, Texas?
Well, at one time, they're not all here. There was the Levada, what's her last name?
Bowers.
Levada Bowers.
All right.
Clarice, and from that family, Clarice,
And
Louise. And
but the ones
Buddy,
here in Grand Prairie.
Buddy
Name the older ones here in Grand Prairie that's left.
Oh, Katie and Jewel and Gussie Mae Duval.
All right, Katie and Gussie, they're all 3 sisters?
No.
All right.
Jewel Maples and Gussie Mae
Boyd.
Lloyd are sisters, and they're also my cousins.
All right, they are.
And
the
Katie-
first one, Katie's last name.
Haley. Katie
Haley.
and Juanita Duval,
All
and
right.
Jim Duval,
All right.
and of course Jan
All right, Barrett.
Barrett,
All right.
and those.
We were very excited.
I have so
Yeah,
many.
now that's the real close ones here in Grand Prairie.
And my Aunt Leela, her aunt, her grandmother, my aunt, my mother's sister, they lived north of town. She lived in a great big home out there. And if they didn't, they met at our house mostly. Everyone came to our home or our Aunt Leela's. And we'd have family reunions. We generally always had one in July, so which is very hot, but that was when most of the people could get away, your farmers and whatever you were doing, and July was a good time to have extra time on your hands that they might be able to do something.
Polly, we have just about 1 minute left on the show. Do you plan on staying the remainder of your years in Phoenix or dividing your time between Grand Prairie? What are your plans? Just in 1 minute you can tell
Oh,
us.
I plan on, I do a lot of traveling, and I plan as long as I'm able to travel. I don't know where I'll be, but of course my home is in Glendale, Arizona, with a summer home up in Payson, which I have not been able to spend much time up there because I've been traveling so much. But I will be in Grand Prairie. I may just, never know, as long as I can get on the plane and come.
The next time we have a Duval, Schaus, Bostic, Powers, Armstrong reunion. I want to know about it, so we'll come and tape another
Oh,
history
that
show
would
of
be
all of you all
wonderful.
It
together.
would really be good. That one would.
I want to
Oh.
thank you all for coming to be on the show today. It's been a delight, Polly, having you. And Juanita, you're special to bring your second cousin with you, and thanks to Jan Barrett for getting all of this together for us.
I'm the one that's fortunate to have someone like Juanita.
You bet. And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do.